Los Angeles, if in the process of that beating, that person confessed to having murdered somebody, should it be admissible? If in the process of that beating, I asked that question to my friend. What was the fellow's name? Rodney King. If when Rodney King was being beaten, the guy we saw on television, in the process of that beating, Rodney King confessed to a murder that he did commit, should Rodney King be convicted under our laws? That's my question.
I don't know under those circumstances. I really don't.
See, that's the problem.
The fact of the matter is, the answer is probably no.
Probably no.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how the courts would construe that, but probably no.
Well, usually the courts construe beatings, eliciting confessions, as not a good thing. And the reason they do that is we have a proposition about self-incrimination in our country. As a matter of fact, not only usually, always do they construe it that way. But my point is, there would be, assuming somebody had committed a murder, if the police beat the confession out of him, and he did commit the murder, and confessed to it, and that's what convicted him. Now, I wouldn't want that guy going free. I wouldn't want that person going free. They did commit a heinous murder. But the only way we're able to convict him is the police beat him up with a hose. Should that person be denied their constitutional rights? Well, my gut tells me no. Yes, they should be. Hang them. They did it. But why is it that we don't allow those kinds of things to be admissible? Why is that? Because it means that we're fearful if you allow that kind of practice, that practice gets used on innocent people.
We've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden. I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you.
Look back in her record as Hennepin County attorney and how she handled officer-involved deaths. And they found a pattern of Klobuchar, the county prosecutor, not choosing to charge officers, instead putting the decision in the hands of a grand jury. Joining me now is reporter Tom Scheck, who did extensive reporting on this story. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
It is extensive, as we said, but could you give us an overview of what you found?
Well, what we were interested in, since Amy Klobuchar is running for president, is what her role was when it comes to handling police shootings and police brutality when she served as Hennepin County prosecutor between 1999 and 2007. And basically what we found is that she didn't make many decisions when it came to officer-involved killings, whether there were 25 shootings that occurred or the 4 deaths that occurred when an individual was in custody. Instead, she transferred that to the grand jury and allowed the grand jury to make that decision.
And many community activists say that shows indifference to the problems facing communities of color. Can you explain why there's that feeling?
Well, there are a couple reasons. One, grand juries are secretive, so there's not a transparent case in terms of where the individuals can watch and see what evidence is introduced, first off. Secondly, there's no ability for individuals to rebut claims by police officers or others. And the third thing is that there's this feeling among some communities that the prosecutor is just presenting the police side of the issue, not the side potentially of the individual or the families or the other incidents that could have occurred that dealt to the shooting.
Well, in your story, you give several examples of families who face this. And one case involved a 15-year-old boy shot and killed by police 15 years ago named Courtney Williams. And his family felt the officer's version of events just didn't add up. So they wrote a letter to Klobuchar asking her to press charges. Why did you feel compelled to include that particular story?
Well, first off, it introduced two things. That incident was very, very complicated because the police and the community and even the civilian review board that was introduced by the city, what they did is they actually disagreed on that matter. So that was one of the main reasons. Courtney Williams was shot in the middle of the night in October in 2004, and what occurred was the family felt like the shooting wasn't justified. They felt like the police version of events didn't occur. And so what they wanted to do is they wrote a letter to Senator Klobuchar, who was county prosecutor at the time, and they asked her not to present this to a grand jury because of the issues that I mentioned earlier. And they also were concerned that the Senator Amy Klobuchar was too close to Minneapolis police. And so because of that, they wrote the letter and they said, this is important that you make the decision yourself. Amy Klobuchar then ended up pushing that to the grand jury anyway, which found the shooting justified.
Well, and I know you addressed this in your story as well. This was a different time, and that was overwhelmingly what county prosecutors did. You do say that in your piece as well, and I know you asked Senator Klobuchar for a response, and she didn't respond to an interview, but she did respond in writing. We want to read that now so viewers have her response to this article. She said, "I don't have a perfect record, but I promise you every single day in that job, I tried to put myself in other people's shoes to do the right thing." And she also said in 2016, in an effort to increase accountability for prosecutorial decisions, several county attorneys began to make these decisions without the grand jury. I'm fully supportive of recent efforts, and I'm working to make sure our criminal justice system actually delivers justice for all. We're running out of time here, Tom, but I just wanted to get your opinion on, her tenure as county attorney was 1999 to 2007. What has her record been like on police brutality and, as community activists would say, sticking up for people of color in her time in the Senate?
Well, she hasn't really shown too much leadership when it comes to criminal justice reform. We looked at all the legislation introduced by the 6 senators who are running for president right now, and of those 6, she's introduced the fewest number of bills that would deal with criminal justice reform on issues like this.
All right, it is a much more involved piece of reporting, and we sure appreciate your insight tonight. And if people at home would like to read the